This is Steve Lentini, and I'm your host for the podcast Different Thinking for Different Times. This is season 3, episode 28. It's based upon my near death experience where I learned how small minded our thinking is, at least my own, that there was in what's next, I call it now, after I died in intensive care on November 18th, 2002. I realized after I got back in my body, after the near death experience, just how small minded our little thinker is. And we have the capability to expand into limitless thinking, infinite thinking that matches the creation. Imagine it made a miracle that we live in, right? It created something so mysterious, even physicists are just beginning to scratch the surface of the mystery. And we think we have the hubris and the egoic mind, the ego to think that we think like that or that created this. I call it God, but it doesn't matter what you call it. It had no name, as Lao Tzu said around 600 BC. Think about that. He had a knowing. But anyway, back in my body, I realized just how small minded thinking we are and how much unlike the creator we are. And that's our job here. The creation made so many differences, so many varieties of creatures, including humans. And it's humans that have consciousness to judge things and to determine what's right or wrong or good or bad. And most of it is most of us are full of shit, as I wrote in my book. You might be full of shit if, or for the woke, you might be full of number 2. Don't want to offend anybody. I laugh because the judging and screaming and all the things you hear today, especially today, seem to be amplified. It's representative of small-minded thinking. Neither side is right, especially anyone who thinks they're right. They found the way. Run away from those people. Don't follow anyone blindly, please. All right, here's something Einstein said. Everything is a miracle. There are only 2 ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle. The other is though everything is a miracle. But without deeper reflection, one knows from daily life that one exists for other people. First of all, those upon whose smiles and well-being our own happiness is wholly dependent, and then for the many, unknown to us, to whose destinies we are bound by the ties of sympathy. 100 times every day, I remind myself that my inner and outer life are based on the labors of other people, living and dead, and that I must exert myself in order to give in the same measure as I have received and am still receiving. A human being is part of a whole, called by us the infinite, a part limited in time and space. We experience ourselves we experiences we experience ourselves, our thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest of a kind of optical delusion of our consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and affection for a few persons nearest. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circles of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Only a life lived for others is worth living. Again, that's Albert Einstein. And where I stumbled a bit, I was trying to be a little bit conscious and changing he to we and us and our consciousness. So I confess that I want to be considerate, of course, right? That's only the life lived for others is worth living. But listen to how he talked about us overcoming, right? Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison, right? In the sentence before, he says, this delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to our affection for a few persons nearest us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circles of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. The whole reason for different sexes, different races, different political views, different countries, different nationalities, different religions, people with different sexual preferences was for us to overcome our reactive acorn brain. Only the good I had done was flashed before me in a life review when I left my body, when I was one with the infinite, one with everything and nothing. So fascinating. If you've listened to other episodes, you know. It was amazing to me that only the moment existed. That's the importance of learning to surrender to the now instead of railing against what shows up in your life and arguing and fighting and spending time on social medias trying to change people's minds or angrily railing against others. It's such small-minded thinking. My job here is to help people overcome that, to point it out. And I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying if it sounds small-minded, it's not what created us. It's very unlike what created us. You'll discover that too. I just hope it's not during this broadcast or this evening. I hope that you have many, many more opportunities to learn and grow. Here's something the Dalai Lama said. Many of the problems we face, we create for ourselves as a result of narrow-mindedness and emotions. I love that right there. Narrow-mindedness, small-mindedness is what it says to me. He goes on to say emotions are a natural part of our lives, but negative emotions have no sound foundation. Positive emotions like compassion, on the other hand, are based on reality and can be enhanced through meditation and reason. And I go on to add letting go of small-minded thinking and all the crazy judgments you have that make you right after all. You better than someone. None of it is true. The creation made us to get over ourselves, made all the differences so that we could learn and grow. Imagine the thought that one religion is the religion, and you don't have to look far to see all the trouble it causes. Even recently, people give up their lives, kill others, maim others, just because they don't believe in the same version of God. How crazy. In the infinite. How small-minded. So that's my thought for this week. Work on overcoming yourself, your small-minded thinking, and enjoy this creation as Baruch Spinoza said, or Benedict Spinoza as he later changed his name to. God is all around us. The divine is all around us, never separate, by the way. That's what I learned on the other side, that God is in the now, the divine is in the now, the creation's in the now, because that's all that existed. There was no past or future. I couldn't string the events together till I got back in my body. And someday humans may get this message and perhaps not, because we still resist the idea of learning from our elders. I'm writing a book now called Sage Advice, Wisdom from Throughout the Ages. And it's fascinating, the thread that runs through all the sages from 400 BC and beyond. The Kabbalah from 4,500 years ago, which would be 2,500 BC. We have the ability to overcome small-minded thinking It's just that we believe our thinking. And we look for facts. We gather evidence to prove our thinking's true. And then we go around making others wrong to the point of even maiming or killing. We have it upside down. But you'll learn that for yourself when you leave this existence and move to what's next. And that's the other thing we do is we live fearing death. And it's a misnomer. It's an incorrect term. It should be called what's next. Because literally I went from intensive care from this to that. Not even a veil in between. It was like a blink of an eye. Even less. But as I said, you'll discover that for yourself. And again, I hope it's not this evening or before you finish the end of this broadcast. I'm grateful for all my listeners now in 20 countries all around the world. And if you have like to support my work, feel free to click support this work. You can reach me if you'd like to come on the show, challenge some of these ideas. Steve at stevelentini.com. Steve at Steve, L is in Linda, E-N is in Nancy, T-I-N-I.com. And remember, if you come on the show, I might just ask you, does that sound like small-minded thinking? Thanks.